Hello everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of Daily Stock, we are going to consider the financial earnings, the third quarter results of the Nvidia, the tech giant, who is now the leading company for the AI. This AI boom has catapulted the Nvidia's market valuation in a year. It has risen, or you can say exploded, almost 900% and 900 billion in valuation. And this growth is not really stopping anytime soon. That is my assessment looking at its record revenue, which has created further expectations of the revenue rise in coming quarters as well. And since this is a pioneering company in the accelerated computing, we are likely to see it keeping the advantage and also adding on to that. So we have a once in a decade story unfolding in a share price of Nvidia, and that is why I feel even after considering the deep in its share price post the release of its quarterly earnings, we still have to go with the momentum and keep looking for the opportunities to buy from the short term, from the medium term, as well as from the longer term perspective. I feel even at these lofty valuations of more than 1.2 trillion, with the price earning ratio of 120, which is highest among these major tech companies. Only the Microsoft is at a distant distant second place with 35 times price earning ratio. But for the Nvidia, this is a different story, with it being the leading provider of accelerated computing chips, with the use case for gaming, for AI driven startups, for the ecosystem, for the data centers, and also in the automotive segment, we have the ventures with self-driving cars. So all this is now being run with NVIDIA being at it. It's one of the core supplier of these accelerated computing chips, and that has made it one of the go-to company for these AI worthy chips in the computing segment. And we have to consider its quarterly results in that context and see how far the company has come and what is the road ahead at these higher valuations. For the company, this was the quarter of record revenues, with the third quarter revenue standing at US dollar 18.12 billion, which is 34% higher from the second quarter of this year and more than 200% higher if we look at the comparison year on year. The data center revenue, which is at the center of this AI boom, has also gone to US dollar 14.51 billion, and this growth is quite remarkable, with 41% jump in quarter on quarter terms and more than 270% growth in year on year terms. So we have this explosion in the revenue, and we have already seen the explosion in the company's market valuation. So you can say that the earnings are playing the catch up with the acceleration in valuation having already unfolded in the market, and in today's reaction we can sense a profit booking observed on these higher levels, but still the momentum is bullish in the near term, in the medium term, as well as in the long term. So from all these three key price levels and time horizons, we will have to simply look for the optimization, the trade optimization, to look for opportunities to invest, to go long and trade in the share price of Nvidia. The tech sector has been booming this year after having almost disastrous financial year in 2022. The 2023 has been a year of turnaround for the major tech companies, and Nvidia has been even an outlier amongst these major tech giants, having its valuation almost quadruple from where it used to stand at the same point of time in the last year. Now we are going to consider its income statement, and in the income statement you are going to see how all its key revenue generation streams have contributed, and it seems to be firing on all the cylinders to achieve this remarkable growth in the revenues. This is the earnings release, and if you want to go through the fine print you can always download it from the investors relation page. Here I will be simply taking you through the highlights of its earnings. We don't really have the time to scan the report in full and try to make sense of it at this one sitting, so we will limit ourselves to some key highlights, and afterwards we will move on to the technical side of the story. This is the revenue statement with revenue for the third quarter of financial year 2024 standing at US dollar 18.12, which is, as I said earlier, also 31% up compared to the second quarter of this financial year. And then we had just little less than US dollar 6 billion revenues for the third quarter of 2023, and now these revenues have almost tripled from the third quarter of last year to the third quarter of this year. The margin is quite phenomenal with the gross margin standing at 74%. But even after considering the other expenses, the net margin is also quite strong for the company. For that, we will have to clearly look at its income statement. So we go to the income statement. This is the condensed consolidated statement of income. The gross profit for this quarter was at US dollar 13.4 billion. Then, if we deduct the operating expenses, the operating income stood at US dollar 10.4 billion. And after deducting the interest, taxes, we have the net income of US dollar 9.24 billion. So that has contributed to this EPS rising more than tenfold for the company, as the net income has risen, or you can say multiplied, from US dollar 680 million to more than US dollar 9 billion. This is a remarkable achievement for the Nvidia, and I have already enlisted the reasons behind this exponential growth in the revenues of the company. We will also consider the segment wise earnings so as to see from where all these revenues are coming in, and what is the scope moving forward. For the fourth quarter of this financial year, the Nvidia is expecting the revenues to be in the vicinity or in the ballpark of US $20 billion. So even on this elevated level, the company sees the scope for further rise in revenues, and as expected with its margin of around 50%, we can expect the net revenues to cross the 10 billion mark in the fourth quarter of this year. So the company is doing well, quite phenomenally well, and it is expected to do well in the last quarter of this year as well. So taken together, all these points are pointing to the northward journey of the company. And in that case, all we have to do is look at its share price, how it is doing in the last couple of days, couple of quarters, couple of months to form a informed opinion. Now, if we look at the charting for last couple of months, since May, it has been consolidating with bullish bias. And if we look at this deep in the October, it had declined around 20% from the swing high, but since then it has really recovered this ground in a small time with a growth of around 25% from the 400 to 500 mark. Even today's deep seems to be transitory or transient, and we have fresh buying momentum on these lower levels. I'm not really expecting the momentum to turn bearish anytime soon. Of course, we can't really rule out a correction from the current levels. That is a possibility, and even if the company doesn't really go anywhere, it can still continue to consolidate with bullish bias in the near term. So that possibility is quite strong. And with that possibility in mind, we will indeed need to be cautious at the current levels, but we will have to keep looking for the opportunity to go long, to go and invest in its share price, as some of the analysts are expecting it to even climb past US dollar 1000 levels in coming years. So that is also a possibility with this tech giant. It can double or more than double in the valuation to become more than a $2 trillion company in coming years. Now, if we have to first see the opportunities in the short term, we have this deep in the share price of Nvidia, and I feel we shouldn't be buying in the today's session, but if we see this consolidation continue for next couple of sessions and as things stabilize, we will have further clarity as well. And if it doesn't really decline much and holds the price band of around 460 to 470, then from the short term perspective you can simply adopt a buy on dip strategy. So that possibility is there, and we can take advantage of this deep which has happened after having the 505 level touched in the last session. Today the share is a lot more volatile since its report came in, and we have this two-sided movement and very sharp moves. Even at these higher valuation, the company is seeing quite swift moves in its share price. But if we look at where it is standing and where it was a month back, we have already seen these substantial rally of almost 25 percentage from these low of October 31st to the high established in the last session. So we will indeed need to be cautious, and rather than expecting further rally immediately, I think we will have to allow it some more time for consolidation, and then maybe in the next rally we might be able to profit again. So from the short term perspective, I think we will have to hold our horses and allow it to consolidate further. Similar thing can be said about the Nvidia from the medium term perspective as well. It has rebounded and risen strongly. So at this level, I think it is better to adopt a wait and watch approach. Let us see how things are unfolding on the longer term. For the longer term investors, we have seen the company almost quadruple in the year's time, and at this level it is still going strong. It has rebounded sharply from these levels of around 400, and the longer term chart is still showing that there is room on the upside for the company to continue to grow, and this consolidation low can be a guidance guiding factor in the movement ahead. So as long as this consolidation swing low holds and we don't really have any sharp move on the lower side, till then we can still go with the flow and keep looking for buying opportunities in this bullish momentum. But if this price band of around 400 breaks, then we will have to take a cautious stance, but till that, this is a buy from the longer term perspective also. So, on all these three time horizons, the answer is to buy, but the question of when remains, and for that, we will have to wait for further clarity on these elevated levels, and I think we are, of course, going to get that opportunity in coming days in the NVIDIA's shares. So that's all from my side for today's session, where we consider the fundamental as well as the technical story of these market darling NVIDIA, and we are still quite confident of its upward journey to continue, because I feel this is a once in a decade story unfolding with this NVIDIA share valuation, and there is further scope for its valuation to go higher. And in that case, all we have to do is keep looking for opportunities to go long, and some more weight is needed at the current juncture, but that is about it. And keep an eye on these share price movements for next couple of sessions, and I feel the opportunity is indeed likely to emerge in coming days. Now I'm signing off for the day. I'll be back tomorrow with a equally interesting stock to work with, so do come back next time around. Thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous day ahead. See you next time. Goodbye.